So for the second session, Sagar is doing his presentation about supercharging logic apps with model context protocol. So give an applause for Sagar.
Okay, so start. Sure. My name is Sharma, and I'm working as a solution architect for MIUG here, this office building. And I don't have a slide about myself, so that's pretty much about me. I have worked in Israel a lot. I enjoy working for multiple customers, and currently I'm working for Mercedes-Benz. And we are going to talk about MCP servers today. So this is a CV picture of integration which I'm doing at various places. And in each talk, I pick up a different subject about Azure integration and how it will look like in future, or how we are adapting towards AI and the future features. Yeah. So for this particular one, we will talk about MCP. So the integration architecture evolution, we have seen that all multiple times. The slide, I believe, in various sessions. So we started with the file-based interfaces, and then service-oriented architecture, then enterprise service bus, and then event-driven architecture, PubSub and eventing, and API, REST, and then iPaaS, then towards generative AI, RAG, and finally we are moving towards AI agents, agentic AI, agentic integrations, where agents will work as integration orchestrator if they have right context, if they have right capability to talk to the right system. And that's where MCP comes into the picture, and we are going to talk about how we enable MCP on our existing landscape to enable our LLMs and agents to talk to our backend systems. And we will do all that using Logic App. So here we will talk about no-code, low-code kind of implementation using Azure Logic Apps. So to start with, MCP is an open protocol that enables seamless integration between LLM applications, agents, tools, and data sources. So if your organization, if your customer is thinking about implementing a model, once you will have it, it needs to have right context, right data, so that it can understand your business, your application, what it needs to perform. So it will need to have some context of data. And that's where MCP comes into the picture. So it's a new kind of protocol. Just like we have HTTP protocol to talk between client server and different kind of applications over the web, MCP protocol really stands for how these AI agents or LLM applications will talk to each other. Yeah? This is a new standard. It was announced, I think, 2.5 years back. And now everybody who is basically building an LLM or an agent, they have this inbuilt capability to consume MCP-based AI APIs or endpoints, which will act as data source or context for your LLM model. Now, as you see that we are talking about integrating different elements or integrating with our data sources and tools. And integration is the word there. That's why we are going to talk about it in this session. So Logic App provides more than 1,400 connectors, and that's how Logic App can play a very important role enabling communication with your data sources and your AI applications. By leveraging Azure Logic App and Azure Integration Services, customers can create composable architecture that quickly enables MCP tools to be discovered and consumed. We are also using a term that is discovered here because we are also going to talk about API Center in this session. Not sure how many of you already know about API Center, but it's a kind of newer offering, which recently became more interesting in my opinion, because how the pricing model worked for API Center. First of all, to start with, what is API Center? So API Center is nothing but a catalog kind of offering on top of your API management or any other APIs, application API, server API you are using, right? So it is just to organize, list, and categorize those APIs. Yeah, you can think about it as a better version of Azure API Management Developer Portal. It does few more things beyond that, but it is not actually a gateway. It's just a catalog. It just lists the APIs you see there. Maybe you can see some documentation from there, but you cannot really call or execute those kind of things. Yeah, it's not a gateway. Gateway is API management. This is just a catalog. I'll talk about the discoverability as well, and of course, it needs to be consumed if you create something. So we'll talk about both. Then the important concern when an organization enable or provide their complete business application data access to these LLM applications or AI agents is about security. What can be accessed, who can access it, how you are going to trace and track who did what. So to overcome that, Logic App, when we talk about in context of MCP tools, the offering also offer easy auth based authentication, which is nothing but Entra ID application registration based authentication. It's if you want to use just out of the box, it's very easy to implement. You just enable it and it will be there. But then you have more granular control by really telling it what should be the scope, which are the client applications or identities who can use it, in what scope. Also, it can go beyond just one tenant. So if you want to allow multiple tenant as well, that okay, users from multiple tenants should be able to access it. That all is possible in this configuration. We will also see it in a minute. Now, we are going to talk about how we can enable MCP servers, how we can create MCP tools using Logic App, and that comes in two flavors. The first flavor is using API Center integration, where your Logic App connectors will act as MCP server. So there will be no logic, it will be just your connectors exposed as MCP server. So no business logic, just one-to-one integration. And it just out of the box. You don't create application, you don't create Logic App, anything, it just gets delivered there. And the second way, which is much more customizable, this is native support on Logic App itself. So using this approach, you can actually convert any of your existing Logic App or the Logic App you are going to create as MCP server. So see it as a complex workflow and orchestration, having multiple types of connectors and multiple actions in there, also loops, etc. You can, by changing a configuration, you can enable that Logic App as MCP server, which can be then consumed by your AI agents. Yeah. So let's was I too fast or pace is fine? Yeah. Okay, you can just interrupt me if there are any questions. So we are going to talk about what are the difference between these two approaches, what are the limitations, how to achieve them. So I'll start with the Logic App as MCP server. So the second one, I need to switch the order, I guess. So now this is in public preview. So basically, what we are talking about here is that if you have any existing Logic App, of course, we are talking about standard Logic App workflows here, not the consumption one. Yeah, and they can be exposed as MCP server using a simple configuration change in your host.json file. Now, because this offering is still under preview, this configuration needs to be done manually in host.json, but in future, this will be available in your Logic App property. You just toggle that switch on, and it will enable as a MCP server. And what are prerequisites? So in order to have that workflow as MCP server, it must start with HTTP trigger, yeah, because that's how a request will lead to this, yeah. And the response should also be in HTTP, which will become response for your MCP tool or AI agent. Yeah. Well, easy authentication needs to be enabled. on your logic app so that authentication is there. And then it can address your complex scenarios, your multiple connectors, multiple actions, etc. So what we are saying here is, if you have a logic app, or if you create a logic app with HTTP trigger, HTTP response, and you make a change in host.json file, enable easy auth, then you can actually expose that logic app as MCP server. We will see how that happens. Also, another important thing which is not written here is the description. So when you have the logic app trigger, HTTP trigger, it's very important to provide correct description, because this is the description or documentation which will be used by your AI agent to identify that yes, this provide this functionality. So yes, in this kind of scenario, I need to call this particular tool. Also important to have your request definition, because then only model can identify what data, what properties, what context is needed in order to call this tool. So these are very important. These are important anyway as well, but in terms of AI, it becomes even more important. Otherwise, your AI agent or your LLM application won't be able to identify which MCP tool to choose for what scenario or for what action. So this is a pre-recorded demo. I will run it and then we will have a question about it. So here, in this standard logic app, we are having this workflow. And this workflow is having a series of actions, a business logic. It starts with HTTP request receive. There is documentation that it needs workflow name, run ID, etc. in order to create a ServiceNow incident. Yeah. So what? So what this is going to do is this workflow. What it does, it basically receives some information, which is your date time of failure, workflow name, run ID. Yeah. In order to create an incident in ServiceNow, so you can actually use a conversational chat and tell it that okay, this is the run ID, this is the workflow. It failed. Can you please create a ticket for it? Yeah. And what it's doing behind the scene, it's trying to get list of assignment groups, because when you create a ticket, you need to know under which category you are going to create that ticket. Yeah. So by calling this action, it will have more context that okay, these are the list of assignment groups or categories, which one I need to assign, and then it will create an incident. So, and here are the properties where we are defining what fields are required. So it's getting the list of records, then it's creating a record, then it's actually passing that ticket number and sending that in response to you. Now, in order to enable this as an MCP, first of all, we need to go in host.json file and we need to add an extension bundle. So this is the extension we are talking about, MCP server endpoint enable true. So this is the configuration you need to add. Once you add this configuration, then the HTTP address of your logic app, and behind that, if you postfix /API/MCP, it will start acting as MCP2, and it can be consumed by your AI agents. So we enabled the configuration. Now we will go and enable easy auth. So this easy auth is already enabled, and actually this is an app registration which will be in your enter ID. Actually go and check. It will have one scope as of now. If you click here, you can actually allow which identities or client application, etc. you want to allow. By default, it will allow all authenticated users on the tenant you have configured. So it will be your own Enter ID tenant and all the authenticated users will be allowed. So what for authorization for general access, you can actually list the users, groups, or client applications for that. So now we have a logical workflow which is HTTP triggered, which has MCP configuration enabled in host.json, and it is also easy auth enabled. Now we are going to get the UI, and we are going to use VS4 for testing because there we have inbuilt agent. Yeah, so we are just going to add a new MCP server. This command line we will use SSE execute for this server side base, and we will add MCP towards the end, and also HTTP as start. And when you hit enter, it will ask you to enter the name of your MCP server. Again, this is important because you will choose the tool, that which tool you want to actually use in this conversation, etc. So the name is IT Incident Management, and it will put it in the configuration. And as soon as this goes into configuration, it will start the MCP server. When it will start, it will ask for authentication. So here it has edited. You need to manually start in this demo, but now actually it starts automatically because this was recorded 3 months back. Now you authenticated using the user, it is signing in. It will not ask for the consent because we are doing it second time, not the first time. And you enable the agent mode here, and in the tools, you will see the tool which is configured. That in this case was IT Incident Management, and it will show under that server that tool in logic app name as tool. And now you can actually, I would like to log an incident, and it will identify that, okay, I have a relevant MCP server, and for that I need these details, and you provide me these details, and it will only know it if you provide proper documentation and also the infrastructure schema. Now it will tell you, so based on the information provided, it will format it in the object exec, and it will send you the response back that will take it down. This was a very easy application, but to demonstrate that how you can convert your existing workflow as MCP. So it doesn't matter what you have in that. It could be a very complex business logic, right, from picking up quotation from multiple vendors or some complex HR flow or whatever. It can be consumed from your Copilot, if you have that, if you have GitHub agent in your VS Code and using that, or any other AI model which either you want to host on-premise within your network or on cloud. So this is the first offering, how you can enable. Now I'll just remove the feedback part, and I'll move to the second flavor of this offering, which is logic app connectors as MCP server. So in the first one, we created logic app, complex, multiple steps, multiple connectors, multiple actions, and we enabled manually everything. The host.json file part will become automatic. There will be a switch in future, but other things, of course, you have to do manually, easy auth, and here, what we are going to do is, we are going to use API Center. In API Center, there are a list of partners, as you can see, these tiles. and you can actually register these partners, these tiles, as MCP server, and then it will expose those capabilities as MCP server. So of course, logic app was not there. Others you can already see what will happen when you enable them, but we are going to talk about the first one, logic app connector. So right. So first of all, API Center is for API discoverability or for cataloging purpose. Why I said that it became more interesting now is API Center in past had only two pricing tiers. So one was trial, which was giving you all the features for 90 days, and after 90 days, it will just refresh everything. So whatever you have done will be gone. To keep it, you pay for premium, otherwise, and the premium was, I think, 700 euros or something per month. Yeah, which is still the case. But what they have done for the free part now, which was more like not a free tier but a trial, now they have actually converted that into a free tier, which means it will not refresh itself in 90 days. Rather, there's a limit that you can have only 200 APIs. You know, it can be a normal APIs or MCP APIs, but you can have 200 APIs there. So that's why it becomes more interesting now. Before it was 700 was too much, I think, because I haven't seen many organizations which are using API Center as of now. Now, API Center will also provide discoverability for your MCP server through API portal. So it will not just create, but it will also enable. And consumers can dynamically create MCP server based on logic app connectors. We talked about that. So what you do basically here, you register the logic app connectors as MCP server. What it does, you can actually choose just one connector, so one type of connector for one logic app. Yeah. So let's say you choose the connector. Let's say you choose Office 365 or you choose Salesforce or whatever. You choose that. That will translate into a standard logic app. And then whatever connectors or actions you will choose inside, those will translate into the workflows. And what they will have nothing but a request, HTTP request, and then that actual action, create a mail, list all the contacts or whatever, and then response. So using API Center, you will select a logic app, then you will select a connector type, which will translate into a logic app standard. Then you will choose actions. Actions will translate into logic app workflows, and then it will automatically create that logic app, those workflows, easy auth, that manual configuration, also JSON, everything will be done. Plus, it will be published on your API Center to consume. And then you can just use that URL, put it in VS Code or Copilot or any LLM model and start consuming it. But limitation. Each tool means each logic app workflow will have just one action, no business logic. So indeed it is out of the box. You are not creating anything by yourself, but it got all the limitations that it will be very primitive. Your model really needs to be, taking care of everything and then calling multiple tools when and where. A limitation here actually too. So as of now, when you go through this wizard and click on register logic app connectors as MCP server, it will ask you to choose an existing logic app which should be empty. Once this will go out of preview, there will be an option to inline create a logic app as well. But as of now, you can just choose. You cannot create a logic app from here. Also, as of now, it just supports managed connectors. It doesn't support built-in connectors or custom connectors. Those supports will also come soon. But as of now, just the managed connectors. So you choose the connector type, then you will choose the actions you want to perform, which will translate into individual logic app workflows, which means individual tools, and then it will also create easy auth. It will also edit host.json file. It will publish everything, and it will be available on API Center for consumption. Just see, we're going to there. It's more complex. We will stop there, and let's just see. In this scenario, what we are going to do is we are actually going to connect with Salesforce, and we will choose 4 types of actions. So basically 4 logical workflows will be created behind the scene. One will be to create a contact. So we will create a new contact to link it to the account. Okay. Then we will have an action or a tool to also get list of accounts you have, and then there will be an action to update the account. Okay. So we'll see how. We click on register. And here you can choose an empty logical. You cannot create inline as of now, which will be available in the future. Choose the logical, then you select a connector. So actually, you can have only one type of connector, unlike the previous approach where you can have all complex, multiple type of connectors, multiple actions. You select a connector, then you select the actions. Each action into one-to-one workflows. Select the connection, and now, okay. So I'll stop here. So basically, we have selected 4 actions here. Now, there are few actions: get account records from Salesforce and get opportunity records from Salesforce, where it actually lists the name of object or entity. So here we are talking about accounts, here we are talking about opportunity. So using the APIs behind the scene and everything, it will know what fields are needed. So it will already configure all the parameters, what is required, what is optional, etc. But for some kind of generic actions like create a record or update a record, it would need to know which entity. You want to create a customer, you want to create an account, you want to create a contact, what do you want to create? Yeah. And so for that, you need to configure it, and you also need to specify which parameters you want to make mandatory, optional, what documentation, etc. Of course, this will come all from the documentation, so you need not to manually do it, but you need to manually select them. So for 2, we need additional setup. For 2, nothing is needed. You can still go and edit it. For example, to create an account, you need just 2 field mandatory. Let's say account name and account location. You want to make another one also mandatory, or any changes you want to do that you can do, just configure it again, you can go and edit. So we are editing the create record one. Here we need to choose which object type. So here we are choosing contact. So as soon as you select the contact, it will tell you contact last name, which is mandatory. Now you can choose additional parameters because you want that. You can do it in others as well. But here it must be done because it doesn't know which type of object you're talking about. So we have selected first name, last name, city, email address. All these are provided by the model. So model will identify based on your chat, and it will fit those parameters in. Now we will do for, so these are already configured. We are doing it for update record. Here we are updating opportunity for opportunity probability. And now it's basically publishing. Behind the scene, it actually create those logical, those workflow, MCP server registration, easy auth and everything. Now it will be available on the portal. You can copy URL from here. You can again go in VS Code or any of your AI tool, add that as MCP server. Using the same way. Stop it. So what we have done here is we have gone to again command palette. We have added MCP server, pasted that URL, gave it a name. It will ask you to authenticate again, easy auth, all that is done. Now it's available in agent mode. You have selected your tool. Yeah, so you have selected your incident tool. And now the first conversation you have done is show me the Contoso construction account detail from Salesforce. It already know. When you write from Salesforce, it knows which MCP server it needs to use, because that's what you have mentioned. Yeah. And what it will be doing, it will be basically calling the get account details action which we had. Second one, get account records from Salesforce. This was the actual name of that logical workflow. It's actually going to call that. It's working on it. It will get all the values, then it will filter it based on the name you have provided, and it will display us the value. So here are the details. Now just calling that. Now we are saying add a new record and make sure to link it to Contoso construction. It will now what we are asking, add a new contact record and make sure to link it to Contoso construction. So what is done, we got the Contoso account details, then we got them, we found a new contact person this time which we want to add to this account. When we tell it that add new contact record and make sure to link it to Contoso construction, it will take account ID of Contoso construction from the context, because in the chat it has already listed that one. Plus it will also rectify that in order to create a new contact record, which MCP tool it needs to call. It will look at the documentation and based on that it will prompt you that okay, to add a new contact record and link to Contoso, I need contact details such as first name, last name and email. Okay, now we will provide these details. So we have mentioned the name, email address and city. Based on the documentation, it will know that okay, it needs to be done in this format, and also at the end it will also have the account ID so that this object can be linked to that account, which it will take automatically. Yeah, you see account ID. What's that? Add this contact to the account. We will go to Salesforce and refresh it. We will be able to see the new contact here. Then we are going to ask that okay, what opportunity should we wanted to close in August month? It will find and it will call this get opportunity records, and based on the month filter, it will give us the account detail that okay, this was the opportunity we wanted to close, and the closing probability was 46%, winning probability. You're saying that I just had a conversation and I feel like opportunity is good and update it to 86%. It will identify account ID and everything, and it will just update it to 86%. So the probability is updated with this. Basically, what we are doing, we correct the line of business applications in your landscape using API Center. We expose all that line of business applications. That could be Dynamics, that could be SAP, that could be any other ERP or CRM system. We expose that whole system as MCP2, which can be consumed in any of your AI agent, and you can interact with that system using conversational, conversational AI, basically. So we talked about two different variations. What is the difference? First one, Logic App as MCP server. There, it supports complex workflows with multiple connectors and actions. It enables any Logic App standard by configuring HTTP trigger and response, defining trigger metadata and schema, and enabling easy auth with Microsoft Entra ID, also updating host.json then you can just enable your existing logic app or create a new logic app as MCP tool. And if we go with the another option, which is logic app connector via API center, here limitation is it's single connector type for logic app, one action per workflow, and then it uses an empty logic app. Inline creation is coming soon, and it configures easy auth, host or JSON, and workflows automatically behind the scene, and it's instantly discoverable and available in your API center. This is it. Any questions?
Each of required logic.
Yes.
Sagar, this for any customer, then in case this to
I did it for demonstration purpose at
Sagar, can you repeat the question?
Yes. So the question is, have you implemented it at any customer yet, or they have requested a feature? So at Mercedes-Benz, they are using Salesforce, more or less the same scenario, and there is a organization level demand for next year in the roadmap, IT roadmap, that they want to enable their key systems as MCP tools. When I heard that, I demoed about this capability, that how this can be done using this. And of course, this was one of the options because they are also talking to different vendors. And I did it during the session there. So it was very fast. People were very impressed because you just did everything live, and it did not take much time. It's instantly available. So yeah, it was appreciated. Of course, how it translates into actual implementation, that is yet to see. It's still under preview. Why I did not show the next slide, because when I created this, actually this was still under NDA because I got this from Partners Forum, and that time this configuration needs to be done manually, all these things, but now you don't need it because this is under public preview and these things are done automatically. So there was actually a bundle, extension bundle, which you need to configure and then only it will enable it, but now it's just available. And it's no more under private preview, this is public preview now. And yeah, so I think more and more customers will adapt to.
Okay. So now, when there are multiple systems with which you need to integrate, for example, Salesforce will have different credentials which needs to be used. Let's say there is some app for timesheet also, and you use it for multiple such tools in the background, which your MCP will decide which you consume. In that case, how can the authentication could be managed, which are for multiple systems?
Yes. So Logic App, how Logic App connects with the systems. Any backend system is using the connector. They will configure using service account mostly because it's an application, it's a background process which is running. So you will have a service account which you will use to configure that Logic App connector in your Logic App. And it's nothing but calling that Logic App behind the scenes. So it will be the same identity which you was using anyway in your Logic App will be used here as well. So different system, it can be different identity. Easy auth is more for who can actually use or consume that MCP tool, who is allowed, authorized to perform that action. Any more questions? Thank you.
Super.
I don't think, but